Part 127. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yun Suya. Chapter 1261. Chapter 1261, Taking Advantage of the Situation. Isn't this the girl Chen Yi saved 3 years ago? Jun's father could tell at a glance. When he said this, his eyelids jumped twice. He was surprised by his own words. After being reminded by Jun's father, Rong Si quickly remembered, right? In the explosion 3 years ago, Jun Chenai could have been unharmed, but it was because of this little girl, because Jun Chenai was temporarily soft-hearted and saved her. She just allowed herself to be disfigured and lay in the hospital for several months. This is no wonder. Jun Chenai now lives in a hidden place, and others cannot get close to him. Except for this little girl who was an old acquaintance, how could he let down his guard on anyone else and allow others to take advantage of him? Rongkai never expected that the person Jun Chenai went through so much hardship and risked his life to save was actually a white-eyed wolf. Use your trust and kindness to frame yourself. Damn it! If it weren't for Chen Yi, she would have died a long time ago, and now she is actually helping others frame Chen Yi. Jun's father was so angry that he clenched his fists. I want to find this woman. Wait a moment. Rong Si suddenly thought of something and interrupted Jun's father. Brother-in-law, I'm going to go find Chen Yi now and ask him something. Before that, don't act rashly. Jun's father calmed down his expression and nodded, staring at Christina's ID card on the computer screen. Rong Si also saw Jun Chenai when he arrived at the prison. After not seeing him for a few days, Jun Chenai had obviously lost weight and looked very decadent and lifeless. It was obvious that he had a difficult time in prison, but he managed to survive with difficulty. Of course he couldn't die, and in a confined space like a prison, he couldn't let down his guard and let the enemy take advantage of him. If he dies, his plan will fail. So no matter how difficult it is, he must let himself live. Wait until the day when Grandpa and the others find the man behind the scenes, avenge themselves, and save themselves. The conversation was very short, the words were spoken very quickly, and a lot of questions were asked. What happened? How did that girl find you? Why did you fall into their scheme? Tell me everything you know. Jun Chenai has long guessed Yi Rongkai's ability. It is not difficult to know about Christina, but at the moment, he cannot tell him everything. Listen to me and stay put. No matter what external public opinion is, no matter what the Jun family does, don't act rashly. When Xia Ying and Yu Lingfeng come to you, they will tell you what to do. Rong Si listened to Jun Chenai's calm narration, his eyes widened, and he stared at him in disbelief. You, what do you mean? Is all this under your control? You had expected it a long time ago. No, are you just following a plan? Jun Chenai did not answer, but curled his lips and showed a pale smile. Rong Si understood immediately, and time also ended at this time. Rong Si watched Jun Chenai being taken away, and stood frozen in place for a long time. It took a long time for him to calm down, and he dragged his heavy body and walked towards Jun's father's house with his heavy body and full of doubts. He didn't say a word along the way. After arriving at Jun's house, Rong Si's eyes suddenly brightened up, and he figured it out. Why don't the shadow hunters help? Even Flame and the others don't dare to take action? Rong Si suddenly understood something. End of this chapter. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yun Suya. Chapter 1262. Chapter 1262. They and I are enemies. At night, Xia Ying and Yu Lingfeng had just finished dinner when they heard someone knocking on the door. 11 Jews stood upright alertly and looked at Yu Lingfeng and Xia Ying doubtfully. Could it be Grandpa Jun? Xia Ying said and looked at Yu Lingfeng again. Yu Lingfeng frowned and was non-committal. 11 Ju walked over and opened the door. Standing in front of the door was a man with white hair, but still energetic, and the wrinkles on his face made it difficult to tell the signs of age. If it weren't for the group of little goo insects beside him, Xia Ying wouldn't have dared to recognize that this old man, who looked to be in his 50s, was Jun Chenai's grandfather. Jun Chenai's grandfather also took good care of himself and looked too young. The first time Xia Ying saw him, he had disguised himself. At that time, Xia Ying could still call him grandpa, but now with this person in front of her, Xia Ying felt that calling him uncle was not enough. Although Grandpa Jun has reached his age, his eyes are still bright and his face is straight, not angry but powerful. Xia Ying and Yu Lingfeng called Grandpa Jun, and he just nodded slightly, and then walked in. Walking in the wind, the aura is strong and the bearing is extraordinary. Just as 11 Ju was about to close the door, Grandpa Jun suddenly turned around and said to the empty-looking person behind him, "Why are you still hiding? Come out." Everyone was puzzled and just stared outside the door. Then they saw a handsome young man, wearing a blue jacket and a pair of casual pants, walking towards the crowd. He was originally hiding behind the door and didn't want to come in, but after he came, it seemed a little uncomfortable for him to go back, so he had no choice but to show up. "It's you." Yu Lingfeng raised his brows when he saw the visitor, showing displeasure. "What's wrong with me?" Qian Yanjiu puffed up his chest and took a step closer to Yu Lingfeng. The boy has started to grow up and has grown a lot taller. He looks like he is only half a head shorter than Yu Lingfeng now. Qian Yanjiu raised his head and looked at Yu Lingfeng with a proud attitude. Yu Lingfeng didn't think much of him at first. When he first sought revenge on him, he just regarded it as a child's play. He thought that after beating him a few times, he would know how powerful he was and he would be able to retreat. Who knew that Qian Yanjiu had the kind of invincible spirit that even if he lost every challenge, he would still come to Yu Lingfeng for a duel with a winning mentality next time, and then lose without any surprise, and then again, and again. Yu Lingfeng was already tired of fighting him. To put it in an uncivilized way, how could there be such a mean person? Is it okay to come and beat him every day? I come once a month, and the time is more accurate than my aunt. Do you know each other? Grandpa Jun is watching a show from the side. Qian Yanjiu rolled his eyes. "If I had known you wanted me to help this group of people, I wouldn't have agreed." "How?" Grandpa Jun is very interested in the reason. "They and I are enemies. This man killed my brother, and this woman forced my uncle Xiao's daughter to death." "Wait, what did you say?" Xia Ying seemed to have heard something important and quickly asked more questions. "You are really a noble person who forgets things a lot," Qian Yanjiu said sarcastically. "No, of course I remember. You mean, whose daughter is Xiao Ran?" "Who is Uncle Xiao?" in Qian Yanjiu's words. When Xiao Ran was about to die, he told her life story. She was the bloodline of Qian Cha, and Qian Yanjiu affectionately called Xiao Ran's father Uncle Xiao. Could it be that Uncle Xiao was Qian Cha's gang leader in his previous life? End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yuan Suya. Chapter 1263. Chapter 1263, Death by One's Own Mechanism. As we all know, due to historical reasons, Qianxia now has two main branches, one is the Qian family and the other is the Xiao family. When the Qian family has no one, it is the Xiao family's turn to take charge of Qianxia. Qian Yanjiu just kept talking about such a close Uncle Xiao, and before, Xiao Ran had been relying on Qianxia's backstage to be lawless. Could it be that she was really a descendant of that Xiao family? However, Xiao Yanhong, that extremely ordinary woman, how did she get the opportunity to meet Qianxia, a ruthless person like the gang leader? Of course she is the daughter of Uncle Xiao, Qiancha's new gang leader. Qian Yanjia glanced at Xia Ying and answered calmly. She really guessed it right. Then, Xiao Yanhong. That woman. When Qian Yanjia heard the name Xiao Yanhong, a look of disdain and disgust spread across his face. It was just because of the civil strife in Qiancha. Xiao Ran was only a few months old at that time, but he was strangled to death by the gangsters and thrown into the garbage dump. But Xiao Ran was lucky and did not die. He was still breathing. When they realized that Xiao Ran was missing, they went to look for her, but she was gone. It was just luck that she found Xiao Ran. Would Xiao Yanhong be so kind as to raise a picked-up child? Xia Ying expressed disbelief. How could such a free, loose, and selfish woman be so kind? Didn't she later say that it was your father's child? Xia Ying was completely stunned by Qian Yanjia's words. And the clothes Xiao Ran was wearing at that time were all expensive. The woman probably guessed that she had a good background, and if she was raised, she could make a lot of money. But later, she saw that Xia Chuanhai's career was booming, and Xiao Ran's biological parents have been delaying in looking for her, and she had other plans in mind, so she led Xiao Ran to find Xia Chuanhai and said she was his daughter. Qian Yanjia continued, although the attempt to frame Xia Chuanhai failed, Xia Chuanhai didn't know about it and thought he had really done something wrong. Xia Ying listened to Qian Yanjia's stern analysis and felt mixed emotions in her heart. How do you know so many things? Xiao Ran told me. Qian Yanjia shrugged and sat on the sofa with a carefree look. He took out a lollipop from his pocket and stuffed it into his mouth. His left cheek immediately bulged. After knowing her life experience, she went to investigate what happened back then. The person who helped Xiao Yanhong frame Xia Chuanhai was also a friend of Xiao Yanhong at the time. The friend said that it was Xiao Yanhong who complained to her about her failure. Yes, but the last blow to Xia Chuanhai was not considered a failure. Xiao Yanhong had abused her for so many years. If it hadn't been for her death, Xiao Ran would definitely not have let her go. It was a pity that she only wanted revenge, but she still wanted to. Died by your hands. At the end of Qian Yanjia's words, when he looked at Xia Ying's eyes, they became more and more sharp, making people shudder. Xia Ying responded to Qian Yanjia's gaze very calmly and explained, since you know everything, you should also know who Xiao Ran is. She just brought it upon herself, and she hated the wrong person from the beginning to the end. In the end, he will die because of his own failure. Qian Yanjia sneered disdainfully from his nose and stared at Xia Ying for a long time. Oh, woman! This familiar tone. End of this chapter. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yuan Suya. Chapter 1264. Chapter 1264. The beginning of Qiancha's repayment. Of course I know she is not a good person, but none of us Qiancha are good people. As for me, I am a heinous devil, so I don't distinguish between good and bad, right and wrong, only friend and foe. Uncle Xiao is someone I respect. Elder, his daughter is also my sister. If you kill my sister, I don't care what your reasons are, I can't spare you. You sound quite loud, but I don't think you have any real ability. At this time, Yu Lingfeng on the side spoke slowly. As soon as he opened his mouth, Qian Yanjia's originally complacent face suddenly fell into the ice, and then he turned around and glared at Yu Lingfeng. Why are you so proud? I will defeat you sooner or later. I'm tired of hearing this sentence. Can you say something else like, I will definitely come back again? Xia Ying was amused by Yu Lingfeng. Yu Lingfeng originally did not want to participate in the discussion between Xia Ying and Qian Yanjia about Xiao Ran, but Qian Yanjia had just given Xia Ying a blow, so Yu Lingfeng would definitely not sit idly by. Qian Yanjia was so angry that his temples were beating with anger at being so humiliated by Yu Lingfeng, but he had no way to defend himself. Because he really can't beat Yu Lingfeng. Humph, Grandpa Jun, I won't help you with this. Qian Yanjiu stood up from the sofa as he spoke, his face flushed with anger. Grandpa Jun has been listening to the situation as if he was eating melon, and he has no expression. When he heard Qian Yanjiu's words, he just said slowly and leisurely, "You young people's relationship is really messed up now." He ignored everything from uncles to daughters to enemies. However, Yu Lingfeng just glanced at Qian Yanjiu and ignored him. He just felt in his heart that this guy not only couldn't beat him, but also couldn't defeat him. He refused to admit defeat. In the end, he was so unreasonable. He is as childish as a child and threatens others at every turn, it really makes him look down on her. "Sit down." Grandpa Jun spoke with commanding words, suppressed the expression on his face, regained his seriousness, and looked at Qian Yanjiu. "Grandpa Jun, how can people like them show any signs of asking for help?" Qian Yanjiu crossed his arms and rolled his eyes in anger. "It wasn't originally a favor to them, it was mine." As soon as Grandpa Jun said these words, Qian Yanjiu's expression immediately softened and he looked at Grandpa Jun doubtfully. "They are all here to help me, and so are you." Qian Yanjiu has been practicing martial arts in seclusion recently. He has long been cut off from the outside world and has not been online for a long time. He has never cared about entertainment news, so he is not aware of the Jun Chennai sexual assault incident that is currently going viral on the internet. What's wrong?" Qian Yanjiu lowered his voice and asked. Grandpa Jun sighed, and then told Qian Yanjiu about Jun Chennai. Qian Yanjiu fell silent after hearing this, and spoke after a long time, "So, Grandpa Jun, you invited me here just to allow us Kincha to compete with their shadow hunters." "Yes, you are 1,000 masters. As long as you are willing to intervene in this matter, the shadow hunters will not dare to act rashly. They will not dare to confront you." Qian Yanjiu thought for a while, nodded, patted his chest, and promised, "Grandpa Jun, don't worry, you are the person who saved Uncle Xiao's life. Uncle Xiao said that as long as you need help in the future, we will always help you. I will help you even through fire and water. This time is the beginning of our gratitude. Thank you very much." When Grandpa Jun said this, there were a little tears in the corners of his eyes. End of this chapter. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yun Suya. Chapter 1265. Chapter 1265. The bad temper inherent in the mother's womb. At this time, Zihu came over with fruits and drinks and put them on the coffee table. "We have been chatting for so long. You must be hungry. Let's eat something." As soon as Qian Yanjiu saw 11 his face immediately turned cloudy. 11 also noticed the strange way Qian Yanjiu looked at him, but he just stood there upright, with no expression on his face. "Go and confront Qian Yanjiu's eyes." Qian Yanjiu kept staring at 11 as if he was simply testing how long he had to stare at the paralyzed man before he dared to look at him. "What are you doing? Don't attract 11's attention." At this time, Yu Lingfeng raised his eyes slightly and saw Qian Yanjiu's eyes that were on 11's body. He said this coldly, which made Qian Yanjiu choke half to death. "What the are you talking about? Do you think I will be like that coward Qian Yin's? Who are you disgusting to death?" Qian Yanjiu was used to being arrogant, and he spoke openly and openly. When he mentioned Qian Yin's in front of 11 and even said it in a humiliating way, 11 must have felt uncomfortable hearing it. And he also humiliated 11 Yu Lingfeng looked at Qian Yanjiu and his eyes became colder and colder. "It seems that you did not study the Tao Te Ching I gave you carefully. You don't say bad words, but you like dissing others so much. If you are so capable, why don't you fly into the sky and stand side by side with the sun?" Qian Yanjiu rolled his eyes gorgeously. Does he really expect him to read that kind of thing? He opened the book and found that he didn't know a few words. What did he think of this Pete book? "Qian Yanjiu, If you speak rudely to 11 Ju again, I will tie you to a pillar and listen to the Tao Te Ching. I will not let you down until you can recite the entire text. Yu Lingfeng's tone left no room for doubt. Qian Yanjia was so angry that he almost stood up from the sofa and wanted to rush forward and start a fight with Yu Lingfeng. To insult him like this? Isn't it just that he can't beat him now? If one day he defeats Yu Lingfeng, let's see how he tortures him. This guy is simply hateful. Although 11 Ju's face remained expressionless, his lowered hands were clenched into fists because of Yu Lingfeng's protection. Hey, Qian Yanjiu, who made you have such a bad temper? Xia Ying asked Qian Yanjiu while drinking yogurt. Qian Yanjiu had a straight face and replied angrily, I have this temper. I have always had it in my mother's womb since I was a child. I just hold back my displeasure. Yu Lingfeng silently clenched his fists and made a gurgling sound, then stared at Qian Yanjia with a cold smile in his eyes, warning him to be polite to Xia Ying, which made him feel horrified and stunned. He swallowed subconsciously. Damn it, this guy has become his nightmare. Thousands of people with thousands of faces, what's so strange about it? Qian Yanjia changed his words in a different way with a strong desire to survive, and his tone was much gentler than before. I heard from Qian Yins that you have never read a book since you were a child. Do you want me to teach you how to read? Xia Ying suddenly smiled sweetly and looked at Qian Yanjiu. Yu Lingfeng's hand on the sofa heard Xia Ying's words and knocked on the sofa twice, thinking about Xia Ying's intention. What's the use of studying, as long as I know how to kill, it's enough. Qian Yanjiu puffed up his chest with an attitude of I am illiterate and I am proud. He felt that it was enough for him to recognize commonly used Chinese characters, and the rest was a waste of time. If he had this time, he might as well kill one more dregs of society. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yuan Suya. Chapter 1266. Chapter 1266 Winning over Qian Yanjiu. Then do you think that if you, the majestic leader of Qinche's gang and the number one killer on the list, can't even write a few words well and makes a lot of typos, others won't laugh at you? Xia Ying crossed her arms and stared at Qian Yanjiu with interest. Qian Yanjiu was still showing off his arrogant attitude. When he heard Xia Ying's words, his expression suddenly changed. Qian Yanjiu gave Xia Ying a sinister look and said, Are you investigating me? How did she know that he always wrote typos? Does this need investigation? Xia Ying spread her hands as if to irritate him on purpose, and said helplessly, Isn't it obvious? A person who has never gone to school for a day will naturally make a lot of typos. Hey, Qian Yanjiu remained unmoved, so what, I don't live by these words. Besides, who dares to slander me outside? Are you tired of living? Xia Ying was just about to say something when she was interrupted by Qian Yanjiu. What on earth do you want to do? Why did you come up with the idea of teaching me to read? Let me tell you, don't expect to understand any twisted thoughts in me. I am someone you can't afford to mess with. Qian Yanjiu said these words sternly, and then suddenly felt the cold eyes coming from the corner of his eye, and Yu Lingfeng was glaring at him again. Qian Yanjiu stood up and left this place of right and wrong. After Qian Yanjiu left, Yu Lingfeng looked up at Xia Ying and frowned, You want to win over Qian Yanjiu? Xia Ying smiled lightly, I really can't hide it from you. Yu Lingfeng sneered, As you can see, he has a very stubborn temper, and he looks so arrogant that it's almost impossible to have a good relationship with him. In fact, every time Qian Yanjiu said something arrogant, Yu Lingfeng wanted to beat him. Yu Lingfeng used to be on his home planet, and now on Earth, he has never met anyone who dared to speak nonsense in front of him, and Qian Yanjiu was the first one. A half-grown child somehow became the leader of Qinche's gang and ranked number 1 in some killer rankings. Yu Lingfeng only thought he was ridiculous. With his personality, it would be better if he could not meet anyone better than him besides him. If he met the second Yu Lingfeng, he would suffer a loss sooner or later. You have to try even if it's impossible. Qian Yanjiu is trying every possible means to kill you and me. Although he is not your opponent at the moment, your ability is unstable now. What if something unexpected happens? Moreover, Qian Yan behind Zhu is Qinche, and we may be able to use it in the future. The advantages of being able to win over such a person definitely outweigh the disadvantages. Xia Ying's analysis was very clear, but Yu Lingfeng had a straight face. It was hard to tell what he was thinking at the moment, but at least he didn't agree with Xia Ying's win over Qian Yanjiu. Not to mention that this possibility is very slim, and Qian Yanjiu, a cold-blooded person who would not even let go of his own brother Qian Yin's, how could he treat outsiders like them wholeheartedly? What if he betrayed them for the benefit of the organization one day? Not impossible. Yu Lingfeng didn't want to take this risk. Master, actually I think what Xia Ying said makes sense. Zihu, who had been silent all this time, couldn't help but speak. Qian Yanjiu looks cold, arrogant, and does things regardless of the consequences, but in fact, he is still an emotional person. 11 Zhu's words made Yu Lingfeng raise her eyebrows and look at him with a look of "Are you kidding me?" People like Qian Yanjiu, and the words 3 words and emotion, can't hit it at all. End of this chapter. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yuan Suya. Chapter 1267. Chapter 1267. The property returns to its original owner. Although Qian Yanjiu has always said that he would kill Qian Yins who betrayed the organization, he has not done anything yet, and has not even caused any trouble to Qian Yin's life. He is just tough in words, but he is still soft in his heart. What if he's just waiting for the right moment? Yu Lingfeng disagreed. Having fought Qian Yanjiu so many times, Yu Lingfeng didn't say how familiar he was with him, at least she knew him a little bit. I really didn't see any feelings for that person. Having a little bit of emotion, you know that he has let him go so many times and given him so many lives, right? After all, if Yu Lingfeng lost to him, he would lose his life, but it was different for him. He could be forgiven by Yu Lingfeng every time. But that kid didn't appreciate it at all, and left with the arrogant look like "I don't want your charity," as if he was very disgusted. Every time he saw Yu Lingfeng, he came over with the look of a blood feud. Ha! At this time, Grandpa Jun, who was silent on the side, also spoke and let out a dull laugh. Everyone looked at him. That child has lived in fighting and killing since he was a child, and he has never gained anything. Caring, the only thoughts that are instilled are blood and killing, and cold-bloodedness is normal. However, no matter how cold-blooded a person is, there is always a warm part in his heart. If he really has no feelings at all, would he always respect me and help me because I saved his uncle Xiao and was his good friend? Also, he helped his uncle Xiao revenge for his brother Qiansha. This is also emotion. If you want to win over Qian Yanjiu, you must let him see your sincerity, otherwise, how can he open his heart to you? Yu Lingfeng was silent for a while after hearing what Grandpa Jun said. Yu Lingfeng is also a person who is not very sensitive to emotions. It is normal for him not to understand such things. Xia Ying quickly reacted and became happy. "I heard what you mean, Grandpa Jun. You also do you think I should win over Qian Yanjiu?" Grandpa Jun nodded. Of course, Qian Yanjiu is actually the most affectionate person. As long as you have a close relationship with him, he will pour out his heart and soul for you. I understand, thank you, Grandpa Jun. Xia Ying smiled happily. Yu Lingfeng saw that Xia Ying was so happy, so he said nothing more, as long as she was happy. Grandpa Jun's eyes moved down and looked at the goo insect bracelet on Xia Ying's wrist. As if they sensed something, the goo insects all poked their little heads out of the bell and stared at Grandpa Jun with blinking eyes. Literally, as if smiling. Grandpa Jun felt better when he saw his little ones, but he was still feeling distressed when one of them was missing. I have watched those goo insects grow up, and they have very deep feelings for them. I gave it to Xia Ying because I thought Xia Ying was his future grandson-in-law. Who knew that Yu Lingfeng would appear? Naturally, this was all a thing for another time. Xia Ying saw that Grandpa Jun was looking at her goo insect bracelet, so she simply stretched her wrist forward so that Grandpa Jun could take a closer look. Grandpa Jun, now that you are back, why don't I return these goo insects to you? I think they have very deep feelings for you. I originally only kept them for you, but now it's time for them to return to their original owners. Xia Ying's smile was mixed with a little reluctance, but she still smiled sweetly. When the little bugs heard what Xia Ying said, they all looked up at her sadly. End of this chapter. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yuan Suya. Chapter 1268. Chapter 1268, As Good-Looking as an Elf. Grandpa Jun pursed his lips slightly and shook his head with a slight smile. No need, I think they like you very much, and after I deal with this matter, I will go sightseeing around, so I won't need them. Aren't you going to stay at Jun's house? Xia Ying is a little confused. After wandering outside for so many years, does he not miss his family at all? The children have grown up and have their own careers and families. As an old man, I can't interfere or participate, so it's better to be alone. Grandpa Jun's attitude was quite good, so Xia Ying didn't say anything more, otherwise it would have seemed like she was talking too much. Qian Yanjiu has been living in the castle during this period, and he inevitably has to eat with Xia Ying and the others. Although Qian Yanjiu probably hates these people, he has to say that their food is really good. I don't do the same thing almost every day, I really enjoy it. After Qian Yanjiu had finished eating, he left the table and silently walked into the woods to eat. After he was almost done eating, he started practicing martial arts. Even here at Yu Lingfeng, he insists on practicing martial arts every day, hoping that one day he can defeat Yu Lingfeng. He has always been number one before, always standing at the top of the pyramid, but now he is told that there is another Yu Lingfeng in the world. Why doesn't this make him angry? He couldn't allow this kind of thing to exist. Even if there was Yu Lingfeng, he would kill him and become king himself. Qian Yanjiu saw a nest of ants under the tree. It was very big. Qian Yanjiu was a little curious, so he squatted down and took a look. It turned out that it was a group of ants carrying food. They lined up in a column, neat and orderly, as if they had been trained. Professionally trained troops in general. This was the first time Qian Yanjiu saw such a scene. He had only seen it on TV before. Qian Yanjiu found it interesting, so he picked up a branch, fiddled with them a few times, and teased a few of them to stay alone. Ants playing around. Xia Ying walked over with a drink in hand and saw the figure squatting under the tree from a distance. Xia Ying was still wondering what Qian Yanjiu was doing. As I got closer, I realized that I was actually teasing ants. She is still a child after all, Xia Ying thought. In fact, it is normal for people like Qian Yanjiu to have no childhood, so naturally they do not understand and have never seen these childish things. Qian Yanjiu heard the footsteps and stood up vigilantly. His originally relaxed and cheerful face was suddenly covered with a layer of frost, and he stared at Xia Ying coldly. What are you doing here? Qian Yanjiu frowned when he saw the glass of white liquid in Xia Ying's hand. Xia Ying smiled harmlessly, walked closer to him, and then handed the cup in her hand to Qian Yanjiu. This is for you, protein powder. You have exercised so much recently, drink more protein powder, it will be fine physical fitness. Qian Yanjia was dazzled by Xia Ying's bright smile. Although he couldn't find any problems on his face, he always felt uncomfortable somewhere in his heart. He always felt that Xia Ying's motives were not so simple. She was so nice to him. What? Don't want. With a cold voice, Qian Yanjia refused without any hesitation and turned his head away from looking at Xia Ying. Xia Ying saw the sunlight shining through the gaps in the leaves, shining on the young man's well-proportioned and beautiful profile. The white face, the tall nose, and the indifferent lips. Looking at it from this angle, she could still see the appearance of the Qian brothers. Resemblance. They are all as beautiful as elves. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yun Suya. Chapter 1269. Chapter 1269, Finding Inspiration in Nature. Xia Ying was stunned for a moment, until the young man turned his head in dissatisfaction and glared at her. If nothing happens, just leave. Don't affect my martial arts practice. Aren't you playing with ants? Xia Ying joked. A few circles of blush appeared on Qian Yanjiu's face, feeling uneasy after being exposed. I'm just developing new tricks and looking for inspiration in nature. Perhaps he didn't believe his own words. Qian Yanjiu added angrily, you don't know martial arts, what do you know? I don't understand, but I know it's going to rain soon. Xia Ying took advantage of Qian Yanjiu's dazed look and forced the cup of protein powder into his hand. Although Qian Yanjiu accidentally took it, he still looked at the protein powder in his hand with disgust and had no intention of drinking it. How do you know it's going to rain? Qian Yanjiu's face was full of disbelief. What a liar, the sun is just right now, where did the rain come from? It will rain in the afternoon. Xia Ying seemed to be particularly confident, which made Qian Yanjiu start to doubt himself. Then he looked up at the bright sky to see if there was any sign of rain. He was talking nonsense. I'm going back first. Remember to drink protein powder to replenish your strength. Xia Ying turned around and left after finishing speaking. Qian Yanjiu looked at Xia Ying's graceful back when she left, with an expression of indifference. She was really an inexplicable woman. However, who knew that after Qian Yanjiu had practiced martial arts for 2 hours, he realized that the sky was starting to get dark and it was really going to rain? How could he remember that he looked at the weather forecast this morning and it didn't say it was going to rain? Qian Yanjiu thought so, walked aside, took out his mobile phone, and clicked on a weather forecast app. After refreshing in real time, he found that it was really going to rain. At this moment, Xia Ying's words came to Qian Yanjiu's mind again. What software was downloaded on her mobile phone? Could it predict so accurately? After the raindrops started falling, Qian Yanjiu hurried back home. As soon as he entered the door, he saw Xia Ying sitting alone on the sofa in the living room watching TV. When she heard the noise, Xia Ying looked back and said, "You're back so soon today?" Qian Yanjiu didn't answer and was about to go back to his room. He thought about it halfway, then took a few steps back and turned to look at Xia Ying. How did you know it was going to rain in the afternoon? Which software did you watch it on? I didn't read it on the software. Then how do you know? The ants told me. Xia Ying said it was natural, but Qian Yanjiu's face darkened. Xia Ying saw that he was stunned and knew that he didn't know. She smiled and said, "It will rain when ants move. Is this common sense?" Qian Yanjiu's face turned even darker after being despised. What the hell? How come he has never heard of it? So people still need to read more books, exercise, and drink more protein powder or milk to build muscles and strengthen your body, which will get twice the result with half the effort. There are really many interesting phenomena in nature. It will be fun to discover it slowly in the future. Qian Yanjiu felt that he had been taught a lesson by Xia Ying, and felt uncomfortable. Then he rolled his eyes, snorted disdainfully, tch, and walked towards his room. Xia Ying glanced at Qian Yanjiu's back and smiled secretly. It seems that the prey is gradually getting deeper and deeper into the trap she has compiled, and soon, she will be able to enjoy the fruits of her labor. For Qian Yanjiu, what Xia Ying said was something he had never heard of. Although he didn't say it with his mouth, there must still be waves in his heart. End of this chapter. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yuan Suya. Chapter 1270. Chapter 1270. The overbearing CEO boyfriend falls in love with me. After Qian Yanjiu returned to the room, he closed the door, turned on his phone, and clicked on the search function. He typed in the search bar, "ants moving," and the results he found were really similar to rain. Association. Qian Yanjiu frowned and thought, is there really any connection between the moving of ants and rain? Is it true that, as Xia Ying said, this matter is common knowledge and he is the only one who doesn't know? So what, that woman has nothing to be proud of in front of her, and she actually laughs at him. The more Qian Yanjiu thought about it, the more uncomfortable he felt. Then, one afternoon, taking advantage of a deserted afternoon, Qian Yanjiu quietly slipped into the study of Yu Lingfeng's house. I have to say that this guy's study really has something. There are many books, can he read them? Qian Yanjiu twitched the corners of his mouth, with a disdainful expression on his face, and then wandered around, looking for the books he wanted. To be honest, he has never read any books since he was a child. His childhood was only about killing and blood, and he had no time to care about other things. In Qian Yanjiu's past years, the only concept in his world was to become stronger. The rest was meaningless and unimportant to him. However, it was only after the last chat with Xia Ying that he gradually realized that he seemed to need to read some books. Apart from anything else, he still needed to understand at least some common sense to avoid being misunderstood by others in the future. Laugh at? With a personality like Qian Yanjiu's, naturally he couldn't stand this. So the next day, he sneaked into Yu Lingfeng's study to see if there were any books like the Encyclopedia of Life that he could read. It's just that Qian Yanjiu spent most of the day wandering around and couldn't find the book he was looking for. Not to mention that he didn't recognize most of the book titles in it, and what were they? What kind of universe or celestial body or something? Is that monster Yu Lingfeng going to heaven? What are you doing reading these books? Qian Yanjiu didn't know that books were sorted by category, so he got tired of looking for them after a while. Then he lay down on the sofa and complained that he was exhausted. By the way, he complained about the monster Yu Lingfeng who reads some books every day. What the hell? He thought that Yu Lingfeng's study would have a lot of martial arts secrets, but now it seems that it is really disappointing. So this guy reads these books every day. How did he become so strong? Qian Yanjiu really couldn't understand. At this time, Qian Yanjiu raised his eyes inadvertently and saw an inconspicuous corner, which was colorful and looked particularly eye-catching. Qian Yanjiu raised his eyebrows, became interested, stood up, and walked towards the corner. After Qian Yanjiu approached, he squatted down, took out a book and read it. Then, Qian Yanjiu's eyes suddenly opened wide, as if he had been strongly stimulated. Holy shit, it's so annoying, what did he just see? What kind of boyfriend fell in love with me? My domineering CEO boyfriend fell in love with me. What kind of vulgar title is this? Does Yu Lingfeng hide in this corner and watch these things every day? And on this cover, what are these two shirtless men with 8-pack abs doing entangled together? Qian Yanjiu felt that his young heart had been violently impacted, and for a moment, his eyes seemed to be covered with a layer of fog. No, this must be a cover-up. How could Yu Lingfeng read such comics? This must be a martial arts secret book. End of this chapter.